Welcome back, audience. Welcome to another edition of Kesutis Nuggets. Okay? Actually, this is the fourth take. It was raining outside, so I came inside to make this video inside. If you must know, but you probably don't have to know. In this video, I want to talk about trust and betrayal, and at the same time, I want to go all the way to the source of all emotional turmoil and the consequential action. So what does it mean to trust someone? Why is it 99% of the time when you trust someone, you end up being disappointed? Right, that's an important question to ask. You know, are you that naive? you know, our situation is much worse than we anticipate. That people resort to these measures, which are obviously destructive, and so it's an important question to ask. And what I came across is that if you don't want to be continuously disappointed, don't trust the people, trust the nature of people or a person. If you understand the nature of a person and then you accept that as this particular script that is running, because you have to look at people as the characters in the movie, that they're scripted to do something, right? And when you figure out of how they're scripted, you can bet on it that that's the way they're going to function, because a lot of people, you have to understand that they're running in a loop of the same patterns of behavior. Like we all do, we're playing one level of the game, then we grow out of this, then that. But if you look at the person at its complete and entire nature of the person, because what we do when you trust is like, well, I trust you for about this, I trust you that you're gonna do now. So what do? You freeze the person and you say like, okay, that in all the aspects and situations of life, whatever the mood and the vibe of the day is, that you're going to do something that I entrusted you to do. Now, of course, that's usually not the case, because if you put that person in a situation where the vibe is low, right, the mood is low, I don't think the person, if the person is wired a certain way, I don't think the person is going to miss opportunity to fuck you over, just because they cannot handle the pressure of that negative energy. I want to get to the energy, how energy causes emotion, blah blah blah. I want to get to the energy, but before I do that, I just want to finish this point. So but if you know that people are going to run the script based on the vibe, it's like a disc, like if you put this vibe, that's what the person is doing, and if you put this disc, that's what the person is doing. And if you figure the person out like that, you can pretty much bet that in that particular situation, the person is going to do it. They can't even help it. That's the thing, they can't help it. Most people, I'm saying most people, when darker times come along, they can't seem to. Okay, so I'm gonna get to this energy now, right? I think it's more accurate to view everything as the energy happens first. Okay, the energy happens first, meaning that you can see it in many different ways, whether the energy happens like within you and it affects your mood, or whether you are in this round ball, and every time the sun ejects one type of vibration, you're being moved, everybody's on the planet being moved, like fishes in a ball, like fish in a ball. Whichever way you want to look at it, but that's probably, okay, it doesn't matter which way you look at it, but the fact of the matter that I'm saying is that happens. That's sort of been proven by the science too. And then when that wave comes along, each single person is now dealing with that wave, okay? And each single person will deal with it in their way, based on their level of consciousness, right? So if the dark times come along, when I say dark times, say, what are you talking about? Game of Thrones here. Yeah, I really mean that the times can carry heavy energy, the time space, right? Because we are in this reality, and this, wherever we are, like, we're in a time space. We technically don't really move anywhere. We don't move through time, but everything moves around us, if you will, like just these pixels of reality. But they have certain energy. Time has certain energy, and that certain energy affects us in a certain way. Now, when the moments are heavy, what you gonna do about that? Are you gonna start blaming other people that they made you feel this way or whatever, or are you going to meet it at the source and say, all right, here's this heavy energy is around, right? Rather than pointing the finger at anybody else or victimizing and saying, like, oh, I'm a loser. Just say, okay, there's this energy around me. Might be heavy, might be intense, which may cause like anxiety and pain. Those two extremes, usually it's either very heavy or very intense, very low, very high. And both of them affects us in the different ways. The heavy kind of pulls us down and makes us not to want to do anything and depressed, and the intense makes us kind of anxious and like, but when the energy is much more intense, the higher vibe is not necessarily bad if we are adjusting to it. If we are deciding that rather than putting it outside and getting into this script that nature that was already written, you can meet that energy at the source, and if it's a high energy, you can adjust to it and feel a pure energy in your body that is not negative or anything like that, right? You adjust yourself to that higher frequency, because if that's the environment, if that's the energy, and you are ignoring that fact and you're running in your anxiety, you're not adjusting to the higher frequency, and that will feel like fear and anxiety to you, okay? And then you will blame everybody that why this is happening, but that happened first. You see what I mean? This is like where we switch everything around, upside down. That happens first. And then the other side of it, when the energy is low as well, that is to face it, that emit that energy at the source too, and possibly access the peace inside of you. Like when the frequency is higher and you feel the fear, you have a potential to access it in more thrill, excitement, passion. When it's low, you have an opportunity to access more peace, stillness. So you use both extremes of the energy for your own advantage, and you're balanced when it's high and balanced when it's low. Okay, so that's the thing about the energy at the source. If you have this awareness, it's like every day has its own structure, has its own flavor, has its own taste. And if you start tasting that vibe that happens every day and learn how to ride it, there's a lot of self-victimization and blaming that falls off, and then you're kind of free. At least now you can trust yourself, because before that you weren't able to trust yourself. And if people would entrust you to do something, you would have failed them, because you were moved by the waves. The wave comes along, you run the script, it's not conscious, you do what you do. Times are dark, you promise someone something, you betray them. Because unless you face the energy to source, you're still kind of running the scripts, right? So what I'm trying to say is that trust the people nature, that they will run those scripts. And if a person already got to the point where they realize that, oh shit, I have to ride the waves of the energies, energy happens first, then that's a consequential thing, then you can trust the person, because that person can trust themselves. And so now you are putting the trust not necessarily in the person and all the aspects of personality, the positive and negative. You're putting the trust in the energy and the source itself, so to speak, in love and wisdom, because that's what it is. When the energy comes along low, is a potential for love, comes high, is a potential for wisdom. And so when the dark times come along, and a person who promised you something, now the energy comes along and tries to move the person to do something that is a betrayal to you. But because the person met that energy at the face, transmuted, adapted, the urge to do that thing goes away. You see how you can trust that type of person? Everyone else trusts their nature. When that wave comes along, you bet your ass they're gonna betray you. Why? Because it's programmed. So you trust the nature. That's why it's a lot of times, if you keep a good vibe around the person, you can trust them, right? But when the shit hits the fan, you see this all the time, people as couples are in love, everything's dandy, everything's shared, everything's great. When that wave goes away, they're ready to cut each other's throats. Where's the love, I ask you? Yeah, because the wave has changed and they are the suckers to that wave, and they will behave the way that it's all programmed to behave. Now, some people don't do that. Some people remain honorable in times of darkness. But that's only because they face it at the source. There's no exceptions, I mean, you can call it whatever you want, those energies. Demons, a devil is trying to tell you to do something. Whatever, man. You don't need to anthropomorphize nothing. It's just an energy and how you deal with it. And can you keep your energy balanced no matter what happens? I mean, that's a challenge. It's a very big challenge. But at least you can start trusting yourself. You can begin trusting yourself. And if you live a life like that, and you say, well, I trust everybody is programmed in a certain way to do what they do, what they're scripted to do in all these different situations. And if you trust that, then you can trust. You're probably going to be disappointed way, way, way less. Probably not at all. Depends on how good you are in understanding the human nature. Now, that's not to say that, to accept the human nature, both sides, is important if you want to live this life in a way, but you see what I'm saying? By accepting human nature, you're accepting not the fact that they're capable of betraying you, but also accept the other side of it. And this is what we normally call a humanity, but I don't think that's a humanity yet. I think that's still when people are running the script based on the energy that is around them, rather than being their own authority, their own energy. It's just my take on it, I don't consider that. But anyway, you can, if you live your life like that, you can trust it. And of course, you recognize that some people are dealing with their own energy, if not coping with it, because if somebody is still coping, still looking for it, cannot face it, I don't care how how many garments or spiritual garments they have, and how many Reiki sessions they did, or what kind of all that stuff. If they're still going to seek somebody's help or something about their spiritual and emotional state, they're still in the coping. You can trust that they will do what they do in a situation. Because when you really trust the person and you want to trust the person, that's that's almost guaranteed to fail. It's almost guaranteed to fail. If you trust their nature, at least you're not surprised. That's not to say that saying all that, you still would not want to be surrounded by somebody who handles their own shit. Because if they don't, then you have to look after them. You cannot let them, because to me they're more like children, right? Like you can't just give a sharp tool to a child and say like, oh, I trust you, I put all my trust in you, go ahead, build a house. It's not going to happen, right? The same way, your trust in somebody who is incapable of sustaining it is naive. And I say this from experience. I would love to trust people and have them to. I had this idea that like, oh, if I just really believe it, that they're gonna do it, I just wasted so much of my own energy, and I tried to break the code that is hard coded in this part of reality, and it just doesn't work that way. So I guess that's what people say about accepting people as they are. Accept their nature. Not to say that you want to, accept the nature and then you're still part of this and being, betrayed or whatever. No, like you just know that that's what they're going to do and this is how they cope with the reality. And, all right, let them play their game. But if you don't want to play this game anymore, that's the accepting of that doesn't mean that you are part of it. You may need to interact with these types of people, but you know that they're leveraged by fear, consequences, and stuff like that. That's where you need all the contracts, consequences, and so on, because that's how they are being leveraged by fear. And very few people are actually don't need leverage, and they know that they have their own compass. and they can trust themselves, and then you can possibly trust that. But this, then you're not really trusting a person, you're really trusting like a soul. I think, you know. You know. And you're not putting that much pressure on a person, you know. um, I for one would not, if I feel like I can't um, fulfill my, if I can't trust myself, I'm not gonna make somebody else to trust me. I mean, that's, you see what I'm saying. I have to first trust myself that I can handle all of the energies, all of the situations. And then if I know that I can, then I say, you can trust me on this because I can handle my shit. Well, hopefully it makes sense. I just wanted to say that don't trust the people, trust their nature. Um, and of course, recognize that energy happens first. And then you may even see the people treating you essentially like the energy happens first. If the energy comes along kind of heavy, and then you go out interact with people, don't be surprised that they're kind of treating you in a negative way. But if the energy comes in and you deal with that, and then you go out, you know, the people may try to treat you negative way, but because you have your shit together, they calm down. I don't know. Hopefully it helps. And I know like this idea that like, oh, but I really want to trust, you know, it's kind of nice. And man, we live in this simulation which has this hard coded. Okay, I'm sorry to say that, but it's hard coded. It's kind of teaching us a certain type of wisdom. Trusting someone like unconditionally, it's a beautiful thing. But I told you when you can do that to a person. The person has to be able to handle. So, I'm not saying it's impossible, but the maturity of the soul must be very high for you to trust somebody unconditionally. Still, it's worth dreaming. You know, at least if you can have one person in this life that you can trust unconditionally, and that's the real deal, it's still worth it. You know, and you don't need. Uh, that's pretty much just enough. You know, if you have one person that you can trust unconditionally, that's enough. And don't expect anybody else in the same level, and just treat them that they have a certain nature. When they freak out, yeah, that's what they're gonna do. What you gonna do? What you gonna do with all that junk inside your trunk? I'm gonna make you squeak, make you squeak. Okay, that's enough. You can tell it when it's enough. Take care. Bye.